Honorable Men Discord. Black Lives Matter and the community is calling for accountability for the Netflix roast of Kevin Hart. Let's talk about it.
How you see yourself is how you perceived. I see a man strong, gifted, head strapping, never down on his knees, begging. Gotta make a way, even in my darkest hour. Say the odds against me was new. I would never cower.
As always, welcome back to another episode. If you haven't already, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Tell a friend to tell a friend. I drop episodes daily at 5 p.m. Eastern time. So I'm going to get straight into it. This episode is about the recent meeting, let me start that over again. Press conference. I couldn't find the word. As always, welcome back to another episode. If you haven't already, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Tell a friend to tell a friend. I drop episodes daily at 5 p.m. Eastern time. So I'm going to get straight into it. This episode is about the recent press conference held looking for Netflix to have accountability for the jokes made at the recent Netflix special, the Kevin Hart roast. All right. And what you see right here is the independent media recording of that press conference. And the woman that you see in front of you goes by the name of Nakima Levy Armstrong. Now, her background is she's an American lawyer and social justice activist. She was the president of the Minneapolis chapter of the NAACP from 2015 to 2016. And she has led a variety of organizations that focus on issues of racial equality and disparity in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. And yes, I had to read that directly off of Wikipedia because I did not want to give her just due as who she is. The reason why I decided to do that is because as I was putting this episode together, some people looked at it as she was the one of the representatives of Black Lives Matter, which she is not. Black Lives Matter was formerly held and founded by a group of women who are no longer at the head of Black Lives Matter. That is now broken down into a board of people. It's no longer by the original founders. So for those of you who have jumped in the comments or have seen comments by people who are assuming that she's some type of Black Lives Matter representative, she is not. She, again, is an activist, an American lawyer, and she once was part of the Minneapolis chapter of the NAACP. With that being said, the people that she has behind her, one gentleman you can see off to the right has a Black Lives Matter shirt. I don't know if that means he's a part of that board of Black Lives Matter, but in any event, this press conference was held with leaders, organizational leaders, as well as residents of Minneapolis, and they came together to bring this awareness and look for accountability from both Netflix and Kevin Hart. But I'm going to play this clip, and then I have the actual clip from the beginning because there's something that I have to say and speak on in terms of this particular clip. But let's get into this clip and I'll talk about it further.
Today, to call your attention to the fact that an egregious, disgusting joke was made about George Floyd. Here we are about to memorialize George Floyd for year 6 after his brutal murder at the hands of the Minneapolis Police Department. Our community is still experiencing grief and trauma. We have young people in our community who were children at the time. They're now teenagers, still dealing with the impacts of the police killing of George Floyd. And instead of allowing our community to grieve in peace, to celebrate George Floyd in peace, we have Netflix comedians making light of the brutal killing of George Floyd. It is unacceptable and it is unconscionable. Tony Hinchcliffe made a grotesque joke saying that George Floyd is looking up at us, laughing, and he can't breathe. When I saw the clip online, it made me sick to my stomach. We are here.
All right. I'm not going to play this clip in its entirety. Reason being is because it's exactly that. It's a clip. If you notice, it's skipped. The reason why I'm playing this clip is because when I was piecing together this episode, I myself almost made the mistake and produced an episode that did not show this press conference in its entirety. Now, what I have queued up following this is how the press conference actually started. And the reason why I'm going to play the actual press conference, courtesy of Georgia Fort. She's an independent journalist. The reason why I decided to show the actual feed is because, again, when I was putting this together, there were certain people that I saw jump in the comments and say, oh, look at her laughing. You know, she was not laughing at the fact, and this is why I'm glad that I took my time in putting this together. She was not laughing at the joke that was made by Tony Hinchcliffe, okay? And I hope I pronounce his last name correctly. If not, I will look into it to pronounce it correctly. But she was not laughing at the joke that was made by Tony. She was actually laughing at the reaction that the independent journalist had towards her calling Tony. She called him Tony Bitchcliffe, all right? Which I have my opinion on her choosing to call him Bitchcliffe. And that opinion is this. As an attorney, you got to maintain frame. I know you might be bothered by the remarks that he made in the Netflix special. I know you may be bothered by the fact that the audience laughed, Kevin Hart laughed, and that you took it personal. But you have to maintain frame as an attorney, especially when you're holding a press conference. All right, if you want to call him Tony Bitchcliffe in the privacy of your home, then so be it. But I don't advise anyone who is holding a press conference and looking for change, whether it be you're looking for accountability from Netflix, you're looking for accountability from Kevin Hart. At no point can you let your guard down and stoop low by calling the comedian Tony Bitchcliffe. Was he right for making that joke? I didn't think it was an appropriate joke for a number of reasons. Obviously, this is a roast of Kevin Hart, so I think the focus should have always been on Kevin Hart. I don't know why George Floyd was brought into it, but I'm not surprised because, and I've said this on separate episodes, black people, I don't care if you're Caribbean black, I don't care if you're foundational black American, I don't care if you're African black, so on and so forth. Black people aren't taken seriously as a whole, period. If you disagree with me, that's fine. Maybe you haven't lived long enough to understand this, but it's a fact. This is not my opinion, it's a fact. Black people aren't taken seriously. And we're not talking about the 1% that, you know, the Michael Jordan who has NASCAR and, you know, and LeBron, and you could name certain people in politics. As a whole, black people aren't taken seriously in this country. All right, they're not. If you're able to make a company more wealthy with your intelligence, if you have a contribution that benefits most or benefits some, then you're somewhat taken seriously. But the entire black race is not taken seriously, and it's just been shown throughout time. But with that being said, I'm going to go into this this is the actual press conference in its entirety, which I'm not going to play because it's about an hour long, but I just wanted to play from the beginning. As a matter of fact, I'm going to play it from the very beginning because I don't want anyone to say, oh, you started it a little bit before the beginning. I'm going to play it from the beginning because that portion, that clip where she was laughing, I want you to see how it was conveniently clipped to make it look like she was taking it light. She was taking the Tony Hinchcliffe joke lightly because she herself was laughing at the press conference. That's how they made it appear in that clip. And I've seen other clips just like that make it appear as though she wasn't taking the press conference seriously herself, because I saw people reacting on it and they were assuming she wasn't taking this press conference serious herself, which I initially thought the same thing. So I was going to speak on the fact that she shouldn't have laughed herself, but here's why she laughed. So let's get into this.
Get some energy. Let's go, y'all. Come on. We're here to fight. We're here to stand up. We have our independent media here. So let's go for it. Is this Are we aligned right?
I think so. Yeah, we should have.
You can't come from right now.
Okay.
On this side, yeah, balance it out. Okay.
Yeah, get in closer, make sure the pictures.
Just want to make it like a U, I guess. Should make like a U.
Well, and making sure that the two signs are visible.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
All right, y'all ready? Mm-hmm. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to be here today. We called this press conference to call attention to an egregious incident that came to our attention as Minneapolis leaders, organizers, and residents. My name is Nikema Levy-Armstrong. I am a civil rights attorney, an activist, the founder of the Racial Justice Network, and the co-founder of the National Target Boycott. We are here today to call your attention to the fact that an egregious, disgusting joke was made about George Floyd. Here we are about to memorialize George Floyd for year 6 after his brutal murder at the hands of the Minneapolis Police Department. Our community is still experiencing grief and trauma. We have young people in our community who were children at the time, they're now teenagers, still dealing with the impacts of the police killing of George Floyd. And instead of allowing our community to grieve in peace, to celebrate George Floyd in peace, we have Netflix comedians making light of the brutal killing of George Floyd. It is unacceptable and it is unconscionable. Some of you over the weekend watched the Kevin Hart roast on Netflix, where a comedian, Tony Hinchcliffe, that was a joke, okay? Tony Hinchcliffe made a grotesque joke saying that George Floyd is looking up at us, laughing, and he can't breathe. When I saw the clip online, it made me sick to my stomach. And I was glad that I had not watched the full Netflix special and helped get their streams up, because here they are making fun of a black life that was taken too soon. George Floyd was a member of our community. He was a father, he was an uncle, and he was a man who should still be alive. Had the Minneapolis Police Department...
All right, so I'm going to stop it right there. And the reason why I, again, played it from the top is for you to understand the context in which she laughed. She was not laughing at Tony Hinchcliffe's joke at all. She was laughing, she was gathering herself from her making the remark of calling him Tony Bitchcliffe, which I, again, would advise, in my opinion, I think as an attorney, as a representative, as the lead speaker for this press conference, I think she should have took a different route than calling him Tony Bitchcliffe. It just maintains the integrity of her as an individual, as a person, her representing her name, her personal firm that she's attached to, and so on and so forth. I don't think she should have said that, but what's done is done. But again, that's why this first clip, which is floating around on the internet, is making it appear as though she wasn't taking the press conference serious, which that in itself is a testament to the fact that we all have to do our due diligence when we research. I know I'm guilty of it. I'm never going to say I'm not guilty of it. You know, between my regular 9 to 5 and all my other responsibilities, when I put together these episodes, I don't necessarily watch certain videos in its entirety. All right. But this was a perfect example of how when you don't watch things in its entirety, you're going to assume that this attorney, that she was taking the whole press conference, she wasn't taking it as serious as she should have, which she absolutely, from watching the full clip, she was taking it extremely serious, right? Now, I just have to say a few things, right? So as far as George Floyd is concerned, again, this was a roast of Kevin Hart. I understand comedians should have freedom of speech in terms of how they want to do their comedy, but there was no reason to bring up George Floyd, excuse me. And for those people that are making it about, well, George Floyd wasn't a model example. No one, even when this happened, I saw the video, as many of you may have seen it. Some people chose not to look at the video in its entirety because of how graphic and how emotional it was to watch somebody go from having life to being lifeless. I don't think there was anything funny about watching the video, and I absolutely could only imagine there was nothing funny of being in his position where he was on that concrete, that hot concrete, with an officer on top of you. Now, that officer had other officers with him, and even though George Floyd was resisting, there's always a way to apprehend somebody without them losing their life. I don't make any excuses for that. I don't agree with anyone that has excuses for that. So I'm gonna make that very clear. There's no way. I've seen mass shooters. The young man who went into the black church and killed all those people after they allowed him to join their prayer, and he decided to take out an automatic weapon and kill all those elderly churchgoers. He was able to be apprehended, and he did a massacre, right? He did a massacre, and if I'm not mistaken, which I know I'm not mistaken on this, he was able to be apprehended alive, and he was also able to get a cheeseburger from Burger King, because that made the news also, that he was able to get the lunch of his choosing after doing a massacre. So anyone who is speaking on the fact of George Floyd not being a model citizen, a model black person, we're not talking about that. We're talking about, can he have been apprehended like a human being without losing his life? And another thing, I don't choose sides when it comes to stuff like that. The antagonizer protester Megan, who lost her life while she was obstructing ICE from doing their job. I didn't think she should have lost her life either, but in my opinion, she could have avoided that by complying when the officer was trying to open her door. And I say that not because she deserved what happened after, but because I was raised to comply with law enforcement. So I don't know what she was thinking by not complying. Once they were speaking to her and the officer tried to open her door, she put the car in motion. I would have never told any of my children to do something like that. So that's why that was my take on Megan. But I'm bringing Megan up to say I didn't think it was good to see Megan go out the way she went out either. So this is not you're defending George Floyd, a black man. And as far as George Floyd, his addictions and things like that, we all know people who are addicted to all types of ills, and that doesn't justify them dying because they went into a store with fake money. All right. And before George Floyd, there was the gentleman, I believe it was in New Jersey, who was selling counterfeit movies or something like that, and he also suffocated and died. I believe his name was Eric, but I don't have his full name off top. So we're not here to speak about. And the news does a good job of this. This is again why I chose to show the independent feed, courtesy of Georgia Fort. I decided to show that independent feed of this press conference because it was a full press conference. People like to clip things to their benefit and make this lawyer look like she was a buffoon in front of the journalists by giggling, which she was not. She was just gathering herself back from laughing at the fact that she called Tony Hinchcliffe Tony Bitchcliffe. But listen, one thing that I said previously when I covered the Kevin Hart roast was comedians like to make jokes that are cutting edge, that are risky, that have shock value, right? But the reason why in that clip that I did, that episode that I did on Kevin Hart, the reason why I didn't lean in on Tony Hinchcliffe for that joke is because Pete Davidson also made a joke about Charlie Kirk, which is why I also, without mentioning Pete Davidson's name, I had brought up the fact that, listen, when it comes to comedy, we can't necessarily pass judgment on comics for one thing and not pass judgment on comics for another thing, because I did not agree with people at the time when Charlie Kirk was assassinated live on TV. I didn't enjoy people justifying his assassination based on the fact that they didn't like his rhetoric and the things that he stood for. Whether or not you agree with the man or not, I don't agree with anyone being assassinated on camera. That man had that man had a baby. That man had a wife. He had family and friends. Did I completely agree with him? Absolutely not. But the point is, you can't, on one hand, expect people to be humane in their way of thinking and their actions if you're not going to be humane all across the board. Humanity is not something that is that is that you only show humanity at your choosing. That's not how humanity is supposed to be. Humanity is supposed to be something that is, once it's in you, you display that to all human beings, period. It's not supposed to just, on depending on circumstance, and you're going to be humane. And that's the problem with this country as a whole. And if you disagree with that, then you need to do more self-reflecting, because that's the true meaning of humanity. Humanity has no color lines. If we're going to be human beings and show humanity, it has to be across the board. So with that being said, the same humanity I have for George Floyd, I have for Charlie Kirk, and I had for Megan, all across the board. I didn't agree with any of that. None of it. So I appreciate what this attorney is doing, and I'm not downplaying what she's doing, what the community is doing, what the activists are doing. I'm not downplaying that, because I don't know their hearts and I don't know their how they felt about the other issues that I mentioned. But just know, if we're going to be humane about things, we got to be humane across the board. All right, so let me go into this next thing I have queued up.
George Floyd is looking up at us all, laughing so hard he can't breathe. And it was just like, oh, no. But all them, Kevin was laughing. All these people were laughing as if it was the funniest joke in the world. So I was laying in the bed when he said it, and it was one of those things where when he said it, it kind of went over my head. And then when I thought about it, I was like, yo, too far. It was like, yo, hey, yo. That should have been one of them moments. Like, hey. Yeah. Hey, yo. Like, hey. So yeah, I didn't like that at all. And then you saw Regina King start to get really uncomfortable in that situation. Like, her face completely changed. Her face through the whole thing. I was like, I couldn't tell if it was this shit not funny. Yeah. Or y'all going too far. I think it probably was a little bit of both. Yeah.
All right, I'm just going to end with this. And this is taking the episode to a little bit outside, well, a lot outside of the topic at hand, because this topic is about the press conference held by the Minneapolis community, the residents, Black Lives Matter, and the attorney that was that spearheaded the press conference. But the bigger picture is about accountability. Just know that the reason for that press conference was for accountability. Again, accountability by Netflix and accountability by Kevin Hart. So before you form an opinion about that press conference, just because you see the name Black Lives Matter attached to it, just understand this is about accountability. This is not even about money. They're not even from what I saw, they're not even asking Netflix to take the entire presentation down. They're saying they should find a way to clip that out of respect for the family. George Floyd had children, he had a family. And again, before you start talking about, oh, well, George Floyd was this type of person, he did drugs, he was on fentanyl. Listen, we all have family members that are struggling with some type of addiction. Don't come to me about the man and his ills and the things that he was struggling with. All right. That is not justifying the fact that he went out the way he went, and then now his name is being brought up as a talking point for a joke, where he didn't have to even be inserted. This was about Kevin Hart. He could have made jokes about Kevin Hart. There was no reason for this man to be brought up, and then to double down on the fact that you're joking about the man. You're talking about the fact that he's looking up, as if you're insinuating he's looking up from hell, right? You can't even let him rest in peace and assume he's looking down. You're saying he's looking up. So it was one of those jokes that it was 2 times appalling and insensitive. And again, I understand comedians, and I'm an advocate for comedians having range to do to say what they want. But I mean, sometimes there is, I believe, a point where it's taking it too far for the sake of a joke. And trust me when I say this. Sometimes a lot of these jokes, this is exactly how the individual feels. This is not just a joke. All right. It's not just a joke. Sometimes they really, that's how they really feel about situations, and they're using the fact that they're a comedian, they're using their title, and they're using the platform as a way to hide behind how they really feel. But with that being said, I'm going to veer off a little bit because I came across this while I was putting together this episode, and what this gentleman said pretty much sums up again how the world views black people. And this is why jokes like this, even by black individuals like a Kevin Hart, this is why no one defends it, because at the end of the day, as minorities, even Kevin Hart, with all the success he has, he's still just someone who is a guest at the table of riches and wealth and success. And for that reason, he's not going to risk his ties, his partnerships by speaking out against it. All right. You could call him a puppet. I'm not here to call Kevin Hart to make names and define who Kevin Hart is. He is who he is, and he'll have to deal with that. But what I'm saying is, as a whole, the respect for black people is just not there. And what this gentleman's about to say, and I think it's best served by this man, being that he's not black, because this pretty much sums up why things are the way it is. And then when we as black people bring up race, and that we experience racism in our daily walk of life, we're looked at as people as like, oh, get over it. You're just looking for ways to, you're looking for excuses. We're spoon fed the way we should be thinking. We're spoon fed our own reality. We're spoon fed our day to day as if it's null and void, and we're just making things up. So this is why many of us don't even bother saying anything, because no one believes us anyway, and it just looks as though we're complaining and looking for excuses. So I'm gonna go into this video by this gentleman. His name is, he goes by my.name.is.hawk. All right, so I'm gonna play this and I'm gonna wrap up this episode.
Conversation of reparations is an important conversation for us to have. It's one that white people largely dodge. We just, for reasons I'll never understand. I know the reasons, and I know why. But for reasons I'll never understand, we run from this conversation of reparations. Slave owners, they got reparations for freeing their slaves with a deal struck by Abraham Lincoln, which I don't understand why he celebrated as such a great president. Jews, they still get paid reparations for the Holocaust. Native Americans, not all of them, good group of them, are getting paid reparations. But black people, they just have to suck it up and deal with it. For the life of me, I can't understand why we're not in a place where we're paying reparations out to descendants of slaves. You can't come up with an argument, even though you're going to bring up the fact that that had nothing to do with us, that was so long ago. It doesn't fucking matter. You still represent a race who was responsible for these atrocities, and we've never atoned for these sins, not one single solitary second as a nation in our 250 years of history. Not once. We just pass the buck down to the next generation, and that ball keeps rolling down the hill. There are over 100 documented race massacres that have taken place on United States soil. Massacres that include stripping land from freedmen, destroying land, destroying businesses, destroying homes, destroying families, and never being held responsible for the destruction that we've caused. I would imagine that in today's financial landscape, the destruction that white people have caused throughout the history of time to black people would probably be in the trillions of dollars of debt that we owe. These are people who broke away from the white dollar, from the white society, to create their own, to hopefully sustain their own. Because we didn't want them. We didn't want them in our neighborhoods. We didn't want them in our stores, in our churches. We didn't want them at all. We didn't want them near us. And when black people tried to break off from white people and create their own, to leave us the fuck alone, which is what white people wanted largely. It was to be left alone, was to be separated from black people. What did Caucasians do? We destroyed what they built for themselves. We ripped them from their homes. We mutilated them. We ate them. We used them as soups. We used their skins to create our shoes, our fucking belts, our goddamn wallets. We used their teeth to replace ours. We used their hairs to stuff our chairs. We took pictures of us hanging black men and put it on fucking postcards and shipped that shit across the United States to our friends and family as a means to fucking joke. We took everything that they worked for, that they built for themselves. We stripped it from them. We either took their communities and made our own, or we completely fucking destroyed them. And we never paid them back. We were so fucking hateful as a country that instead of paying them back, instead of righting our wrongs, instead of atoning for our sins, we were so fucking racist and hateful that in the literature of insurance, we labeled these instances as riots and not massacres because that would make us not legally binded to pay these people back. So we took everything they worked for. They weren't impeding on our rights. They were trying to break away from us, which is what the fuck we wanted to begin with. And we destroyed it because they were sustaining off of our dollar, which is what, again, we wanted to begin with. And we never were held responsible for these fucking acts. And we never paid them back. So yes, bitch, we owe these people fucking reparations. You mean to tell me Jews can get reparations for Holocaust decades after it happened, but black people can't get reparations for centuries and centuries of chattel slavery? Are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? Where does that make sense? You mean to tell me that we could have paid slave owners for having to release their slaves? We paid them reparations, but we can't pay the slaves reparations? Tell me how fucking racist and stupid you can be without telling me how racist and stupid you can be. I think the conversation of
Listen, that man summed it up. And you might be saying to yourself, well, what the hell does that have to do with Tony Hitchman's joke? Again, it has to do with the fact that black people, melanated people, were never considered humans since slavery. And you say, oh, here you go with the slavery. Oh, you're rolling your eyes. You roll your eyes. But it still persists, just in a different fashion. Kevin Hart is so happy to be a part of the club and be able to make so many Netflix movies and star with The Rock. He's operating as an individual. And many of these athletes, entertainers, they operate as individuals because they're just so happy to be out of that poverty that they grew up in. Kevin Hart being from Philadelphia, that it's like every man for themselves. Every man for themselves. They might make a cameo for something like when George Floyd passed. And this is why I'm going to fast forward to the next speaker because she summed it up also very well. I know I said I was going to conclude with that guy, but I have to let you hear what this lady said. And then I'm going to officially conclude this episode. But listen to what this lady said. And this is courtesy, again, go to Georgia Fort. She's an independent, journalist doing great work by putting out this type of full coverage of this press conference. Because, again, if you look for this press conference, good luck finding it in its entirety. If you do, then salute to those other channels that's putting it out there in its entirety and not just chopping it up to make it seem as though the lawyer was laughing at Tony Hinchcliffe's joke during the roast. But let's get into this, and then I'm definitely going to wrap it up.
And what we saw in this Netflix I'm sorry, in this Netflix special honoring Kevin Hart, was a white man, Tom, whoever, came onto a black man's platform to insult him. And Kevin Hart accepted it. I don't know if he was drunk, I don't know if he was high, but I would hope to think that a sober black man who showed up and came here following the murder of George Floyd would have more conscience than to allow that. And to allow it.
This is why we watch things in its entirety, all right? Again, I didn't know that Kevin Hart was one of the few celebrities, if you will, that actually showed up post George Floyd's passing in Minneapolis. And that changes why these people are so appalled, why Minneapolis residents, why the Black Lives Matter, why this attorney is speaking against this presentation by Netflix, because this presentation by Netflix was also brought to you by Kevin Hart himself. And how much of a slap in the face is that for the family member, the children, or I don't know if George Floyd has more than one child, but how much of a slap in the face is that, knowing that, oh, someone with such a name as large as Kevin Hart was out there, feet on the ground, post George Floyd passing, and then now he's being roasted by a comedian that he accepts as a colleague and a friend, if you will, and he's allowing this guy to speak like that on the platform. Listen, these people just want Netflix. These people just want Netflix to make an apology, and they also want Kevin Hart to address this. And being that he was actually out there, he absolutely, in my opinion, needs to speak out against that and apologize himself if Tony Hinchcliffe doesn't apologize. But Kevin Hart has to speak out against this. And I know I showed a clip where he was on his bed and he was speaking out against the jokes made by, I think, Cat Williams. But he needs to address this, because you actually took time out to go out there and show that you were standing with the family and community of George Floyd, but now you're receiving a joke by a colleague and you have nothing to say about that. You have to say something about that, because then you look like you look like an idiot, in my opinion. There's no way, for myself and everything I say, my opinions, I speak as a man. If I was to personally take time to go to Minneapolis, which I do not live in Minneapolis, even if Kevin Hart lived in Minneapolis, he still went out there. He still went out there, showed face. And then now you got a comedian making a joke like that. You should address that. You should address that. If not, have it also removed from that from the remaining streams. So I agree with this lady.
To be continued to be aired. This is what happens because America has continued to coddle white supremacy and have an anti-black and anti-brown policy.
That's right.
This man, Tom, how do you say his name? Hinchcliffe, also insulted the Latino community. And that was also part of a Netflix special, I believe, but he was at a Trump event, and it was horrific. And now, I don't understand why he was on that same platform. I understand that Kevin Hart produced this program. Why would you invite someone who makes racist and offensive statements onto your program? That's not how we move forward as a people. We can't embrace white supremacy and call ourselves one of the people and standing with the people. It's one or the other. So if you're here standing with the family, stand with the family, stand with your people. But if you want to just move forward and stand with white supremacy, and you want to stand with white nationalism, you want to stand with the man who gave a speech or with his jokes and at the end said, God bless all of you and God bless America, that is the same reason we went into the city's church protest, because white supremacists have continued to demonize black people in the name of Jesus, in the name of Christianity, in the name of their God. And it's not acceptable.
That's right.
That is the same reason why we saw ICE here targeting the immigrant community. And it's the immigrant communities of color, let's be clear. And targeting the Righteous 39, who stood up against David Easterwood and the city's church because they are allowing him to continue to be a pastor at that church while he is the regional director for ICE and has caused so much harm here. So it's white privilege that allows these individuals, such as Tom Hinchcliffe, to walk onto a platform where we're honoring a black man and insult George Floyd. But not only did he say that, he also insulted black people when he said it doesn't matter how much money and he said ninja. It's like he wanted to say the N-word, makes, right? They'll still act like an N. And he was talking about Kevin Hart and black people. So if he wants to talk about how much people have and how they behave, he should look at the Epstein files and the rich white men in the Epstein files, right? Don't talk about black people having money still acting like ninjas. Go into that Epstein file and call out the man that you worship as your God, Donald Trump, since he's a mega supporter. Let's get back to that. Stop demonizing black men and black people, and let's hold the real perpetrators accountable.
So I'm going to end it there, and I'm just going to say this. Again, humanity is not something that is based on when you feel like being humane. It should be across the board. And the same thing for, with the jokes. So if the joke, I'm not for this joke. I wasn't for Pete Davidson's joke. I don't think there was a place for talking about Charlie Kirk. I don't think there was a need to talk about Charlie Kirk. Everything could have been just directed towards Kevin Hart alone, and this press conference would have never been. And for those people who see this and they're like, oh, Black Lives Matter again, without knowing the full context, shame on you. I'll say this: Black Lives Matter, the lawyer, the community, all they're asking for is for accountability. And the accountability in the form not of money, but in the form of Netflix doing what they believe is right by taking that portion of the roast out, and for Kevin Hart speaking against it. That's what they're asking for. And even that, all they're asking for is accountability, and even that may be something that never happens. And it has nothing to do with money. So before you look at it like Black Lives Matter again, look at them, they're wanting attention or they're looking for money. They're not looking for any of that. They're looking for accountability, and that's free. Accountability is free, and yet the chances of them getting both things is probably slim. But I hope I'm wrong in saying that. Hopefully I'm saying that and then Netflix does the right thing and they take that out of this segment. And hopefully Kevin Hart speaks against this, but who knows? And as far as what she just said in the end, there's truth to that. If you notice Tony Hinchcliffe's history, yes, he did make a joke at, I believe, one of the during the election. He did make a joke about the Hispanic community, and now he's also making a joke about the black community as well as George Floyd, which shows a pattern of the type of jokes that he enjoys making. So you can't tell me that, oh, he's just a comedian making a joke. Look at the type of jokes he tries to make. Not tries to make, that he makes. Look at the type of jokes he makes. It says a lot about the person. Why does he enjoy that type of humor? Is it far-fetched from the person that he is outside of comedy? That's the million-dollar question, and I don't think it is. I don't think it's far-fetched from who he is as an individual. And that in itself is a problem. But the bigger problem is the fact that, as a whole, black people aren't respected. This is why these jokes fly. This is why these jokes fly. And you could disagree with all you want, but as a whole, this is why these jokes fly, and this is why other nationalities look down on black people as well. This is why the world in itself, as a whole, look down on black people. But what's your thoughts on all this? As always, I appreciate everyone for tuning in. If you haven't already, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, tell a friend to tell a friend. I drop episodes daily at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And as always, stay honorable.